Hey everybody, it is Eric and Tami here from TechnoRV, and we have a topic today that we want to talk about that we have written probably a few articles on this topic, and it is when you get an RV, what are the top 3 things that I would say most people would agree with?
As it relates to technology.
As it relates to technology, that you probably just need to go ahead and get along with the purchase of your RV.
Right. We're not talking like water hose, sewer hose, like those.
No.
Because those probably are, are must-haves as well. But.
So this technology type stuff,
Yes.
right? So I say we just jump right in, and well, we're kind of giving it away right here. But the first one is you have to protect the electrical system in your RV, and so you do this with what's called an electrical protection system. In this case, the system that we've used for since we've been RVing is the Surge Guard brand of electrical protection system. And I think we should just talk about what all it does and why every RVer, like no joke, every RVer should have this.
Yeah, when we first got the RV, it was kind of like we were brand new to it and we jumped into it really quickly. We didn't do a lot of research, but in the little bit of research we did, we learned really quickly that was the first thing we should buy. We actually had it when we got the RV because, I mean, first of all, RV electrical systems are so different than houses. That in itself was just different.
Yeah.
But we heard enough about power not being steady, power not being consistent, different than a house. And you don't buy, our first RV was a 5th wheel. You don't buy and spend that kind of money, and without protecting it, I guess, in some way.
And so a lot of people think of surges, like, oh, I got to protect against surges. And while you do need to do that, there's a lot more that you have to protect against as it relates to just RV park power. So you just think about it like this power pedestals here. And 1,000 people could have come before you plugging into this unit, and I've seen them run over, drug down the road. I mean, just
people pull off with these attached to them and yank things from them. I mean, stuff happens. It's just what it is.
Stuff happens, and then I've seen people like grabbing the cable and just pulling the cord out, which weakens the brass fingers that hold the plug in.
Yeah, the comparison for me is like wall outlets in houses, ones that get used over and over and over and over again, they get loose. They get, it affects, I guess. You don't want to use that plug because it's kind of loose. Same thing happens with RV pedestals. So
so it brings us to the wiring on the pedestal. You have got to ensure that you have a good ground. You have to ensure that you have a good neutral, and you don't want any reverse polarity issues going on. So the ground basically is where excess voltage is sent to. So if there is excess voltage, or even just it's really for like voltage leakage in an RV. If there's nowhere for that to go, or if you have a little bit of a spike and there's nowhere for that to go, it can go to the frame of your RV. Right, so that's not good. Now your RV is now charged, and so a ground is super important, because when you have a ground, that's where that excess voltage goes. So got to have a ground. A neutral, all right. So if you're in a 30 amp RV and you don't have a neutral, like, just nothing will work, right?
Okay.
And so which is probably a good thing. But in a 50 amp RV,
you're not so lucky.
In a 50 amp RV, you're not so lucky.
Right.
In that things will work, but you can have what's called, people call it all different kinds of things, but accidental 240 is one. So in a 50 amp RV, you've got 220 volt legs coming into your RV, right? And they share one neutral, right? Because they're out of phase with each other, right? That's how they can share that one neutral. If you lose that neutral, which the neutral is the return path of power, right? Your hot lines bring the power in.
That's a little plane.
Your hot lines bring the power in, and the return path is that neutral all the way back to the service panel, right? If you lose that neutral, those 220 volt lines can come together and create what's called accidental 240. And really what it comes down to is you'll have high voltage on one side of your RV and very low voltage on another.
Both of which are bad for whatever's plugged in or
both are
operating
very
on
bad.
that.
Yeah. So you got to have a good neutral, right? At reverse polarity, this is where your neutral and your hot line were miswired.
Reversed, yeah.
If you have reverse polarity on the pedestal, every outlet in your RV is now reverse polarity.
Which is so creepy.
Yeah, so if somebody at the pedestal made a mistake and wired it wrong, yeah, it does happen.
There's a reason it tests for it.
That's right. Then your whole RV is reverse polarity. Now, will everything work in your RV? Your power outlets, will they work? They sure will. But the problem is that they can leave things charged while they're in the off position. For example, let's say you have a toaster.
Best example.
And you push it down, your toast goes down, and it pops up, right? And your toast gets stuck in there, right? But it's in the off position, right? Because it popped up. With reverse polarity, those coils are still charged even though it's off. Now you take a fork and you go fishing your toast out, which nobody should ever do.
You should never. I think the toasters come with warnings to never do that.
So you should never do this.
Don't.
This is worst case scenario.
It's worst case.
Those coils are charged, right? So this is why reverse polarity is bad, okay? All right, so with a total electrical protection system, when you plug these in and you flip the breaker, it does the surge guard does a 10-second inspection on the wiring, and it makes sure that there's good ground, good neutral, and no reverse polarity. If there's not, it's going to tell you on the LCD display that you've got an open ground or open neutral or reverse polarity, and it will not give you power. That's a good thing. But let's say everything's good. You flip it, you get power to the RV. Now what it's doing is protecting you against surges.
Right.
Right. So if there is a surge in the area, that it can absorb that and snap you off from it. All right. So that the surge won't get to your RV.
More importantly, though, it's protecting against low and high voltage.
Good point. Good point. So low voltage probably happens more than anything in our experience and all the bunch of other RVers that we talk to and see online and all that. And this is basically, there's a couple of things going on here. If a lot of people are turning their AC units on, that can pull things down and lower the voltage. We talked to Southwire the other day, which is the company that owns Surge Guard. We had a meeting with them, and we were talking about just like the standards for RV parks when they're building out a grid for an RV park.
Yeah, I was asking him, I'm like, what is the big deal about low voltage? I get that it's the most common, but why is it the most common fault? Like, what is the deal with low voltage? And I didn't know. I mean, I was...
Yeah, so the answer was that the standards, the electrical standards, don't say that they have to build a RV park electrical grid to as if it's at full capacity.
Right. You do not have to provide enough power for 100% capacity.
Right. And so
to be at code.
Yeah. So, but in RV parks, they're looking to save money, so they're going to build it to code, and probably that's kind of it. And now, you know, how many parks these days are like not full? I mean, they're probably all full. You know what I mean? So, you know,
and it was a staggering number, and I can't recall it exactly right now, but it was something like if you have more than 10 sites, you only have to fill it to like
40%
40 or 50%.
Pretty sure it was 40.
Yes, staggering numbers. Like don't have to provide 50% of the power that would be required if you were 100% full. So, you know, if you're in a full campground and you're in a campground that has built to code, it's highly likely you're going to be you're going to be in a brownout, low voltage situation.
Yeah. So low voltage is anything 102 volts or below, right? Mm-hmm. And so low voltage, the bad thing about low voltage is there's this lack of cause and effect with low voltage, in that you can have low voltage and things will run, but it's decreasing the life of your electronic components, and you probably won't even know what's happened unless you get like really low. But I mean, you know, heck, if you're at like 95 volts, I mean, everything will run, but you're reducing the life of those components. Now you wake up one morning, something's not working.
Yeah.
You don't know what to attribute it to.
Yeah, like air conditioner. You think, oh, these RV air conditioners, they don't last. Oh, well, maybe they do, and just not been giving it the voltage, and what a pain that is to replace.
Yeah, for sure. And then high voltage is anything of 132 volts or above. That's different from a surge. That's just there's high voltage in the area, and that can have bad effects on your electronic components too. So the surge guard.
Yeah, the good news
will
is
take care of
all of that. You
covered.
don't even have to understand what it means, and you might not even care, because this does it already for you. So I know this stuff now because we've been doing this so long, but even if, you know, that could freak you out that all this stuff happens, but if you use a total electrical protection, none of that is going to get through to your RV, and you're going to be notified of it and protected from it. So that's the more important thing. I mean, it is cool why it's caused and what it all is, but the reality is, just tell me that's not going to get in my RV is what I want to know. Right.
The surge guard will handle it. They're so confident in this product here that their warranty is basically it's called a limited lifetime warranty with connected equipment coverage. That connected equipment coverage is what kind of puts them over the top of being the best warranty on the market.
Oh yeah.
And that means that if this fails to do what it was intended to do, and something in your RV gets zapped,
damaged,
then Surge Guard will pay for the cost of whatever got damaged. So that's pretty high confidence level.
We left something out. Another thing that Surge Guard has a patent on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Totally forgot.
Yeah. So everything we've talked about, that wiring, the high-low surge, that's load side protection, which means it's coming from the pedestal.
Line side.
Man, you got me all thrown off here. You're right. That's line side, right? That's at the line, right? There's something else called load side protection, which is stuff in your RV.
Yeah.
It's the side that's actually pulling the power in, right? Surge Guard has the patent on load side protection, which means it can detect elevated ground currents and open neutral conditions inside the RV.
Right.
So if you were to lose a neutral in your RV, having the same effects that we've already talked about, this can detect that. If you have this over voltage situation inside of an RV, like you shouldn't have a lot of over voltage on a ground line, and that's what it is. It's detecting that ground line. And if you do, there's a problem.
Yep.
And so this will detect it and cut you off from that.
So more protection than any other unit from that alone, let alone other features.
And for us as full-time RVers and owners of TechnoRV, like this is what we do. We check the units out, and we pick. Somebody else may have a different opinion. That's fine, but we only sell what we consider to be like the best on the market. And by all means, this is the 34951. Yep. This is the current unit, 50 amp model as of April 2021. Then the 34931 is the current model as of April 2021 for 30 amp models.
And something I want to point out, because I read about this a lot on social media, when we talk about total electrical protection, that generally, well, it doesn't generally, it does mean the high-low voltage protection in addition to surge, and not only does it detect miswired pedestals, but it will protect you from it. Some of the lesser expensive ones that are just surge only, they will let you know if a pedestal is miswired, but it doesn't protect you from it, and they don't have low-high voltage. Total electrical protection, EMS, electrical management system, those are all referring to those units that have the high-low voltage protection and the protection from the miswired pedestal.
Yeah, those are terms they're kind of marketing terms for companies.
Each company has their own name for it.
If somebody was like, does this have EMS? I would be like, well, that's not the term that's used by Surge Guard, but by EMS you mean, does it have total electrical protection? Yes, it does have it. They just call it something different. So okay, well, I think that covers electricity. So
we have a lot more videos on electricity. We actually have an article that's like the complete guide to what it covers, what to take into consideration, should you lock it, all this kind of stuff, and I'll link to that in the article too.
Okay. So the next one on the list is tire pressure monitoring systems for your RV. And we actually carry two brands, but this isn't necessarily just about the products. It's about what is the problem that we're resolving here, right? So, you know, everything's riding on your tires, and you know we're trying to prevent that blowout, right? That is just unexpected blowout. Well, the problem is that most blowouts are preceded by something. They're a surprise to you, but there was something going on there that if you would have known that was going on, you would have known that in the future I'm going to have a blowout if I don't do something about this, and that is low pressure and high temperature usually precede a blowout, because what happens is you get low pressure typically by a valve stem leak or a puncture or osmosis, which is basically just over time the air's leaking out, right? Those are typically the three ways that you lose air in a tire. Let's say you're driving, you get a nail in your tire, okay? You don't know it. You're driving down the road, you think everything's good, and you start to lose pressure. As the pressure goes down, the footprint of your tire gets bigger, right? You know what a flat tire looks like. It just starts to pancake,
it's like smushing a marshmallow.
Take out. That generates more resistance on the road and generates heat. The heat is, at the end of the day, what ends up causing the blowout. When a tire hits 200 degrees or a bit north of 200 degrees, the compounds in the tire begin to break down. This is when the blowout happens. But the nail in the tire is what actually preceded it. That's why tire pressure monitoring systems are so crucial, because they monitor pressure and temperature.
Right. And not just tires getting punctures or leaks, it can also be like brakes and stuff causing heat buildup as well. That has nothing to do with, because tires do cause, tires are part of the problem with blowouts, but a lot of times heat is generated, especially on towed vehicles, from brakes and stuff, and it does that too. You don't think of it, you're thinking of just protecting your tire, but it actually could be your braking system or something else generating heat.
So on like a towed vehicle, if your brakes don't fully release, that generates an enormous amount of heat. If you're in a towable, maybe the bearings in the wheel hubs are freezing up, generates an enormous amount of heat. And again, the tires, they hit 200 degrees or a little bit north of that, and you don't even have to have a leak at that point. The tires can't handle that type of temperature, and eventually they'll blow out, because we do hear that too, is the just an enormous heat on something that causes that. So tire pressure monitoring systems, you have a sensor that you screw onto the valve stem, and they're pressure activated, and from that sensor it sends the information to a monitor that sits with you where you're driving at.
Well, you say they're pressure activated. The two that we sell are pressure activated.
Good point. Some units on the market are what's called motion activated, and they don't start sending information until you're moving, which I think's silly, because you want your information before you start moving in the morning, right? So, and by the way, your pre-trip inspection should always include checking the air pressure and inspecting your tires. When you have a tire pressure monitoring system, it eliminates the need for you to check the pressures, because this is going to check it for you. Should still do a visual inspection of the tires, right?
Yes.
But this will take care of you having to go around and stick each valve stem. Anyway, so you've got the information coming to a monitor now. If you have low pressure, high pressure, a rapid pressure release,
high temperature,
you're going to get alarmed.
And it's going to tell you what tire position's in that, out of the range of what it should be. Yeah, so it tells you which tire's in alarm. Depending on what's going on, if it's like you hit just the part of the low pressure parameter that you have preset in the system, then you got a decision to make. You know what I mean? I mean, the goal is to get off the road safely. See it, maybe you can make it up to the next exit. If it's not a rapid pressure release and it's a slow leak, you might be able to make it to the next exit. You got to make that decision on your own. But the idea is that you would be able to get off the road safely, examine the situation. Maybe there is a puncture, but then you can get back in and make it to the next exit and get to a tire professional. But that is what these systems are for. And to me, every RVer should have one. Oh, yes.
It's not even close, because you see these people that have blowouts, and it blows out the underside of their RVs, it blows out the propane lines, and then just then you got the tire damage.
Right. You've never driven anywhere without it. I remember one time after an RV show, we were using our monitor as our display in the booth, and we packed it up on the Jeep in the alu boxes tight, and we were about to head out, and you're like, where's my monitor? And literally,
I wasn't leaving.
Unpacked everything.
I wasn't leaving.
There's like, no way am I pulling out. That will be the time that something happens, and you don't go anywhere.
No way.
Absolutely.
I won't drive 10 feet without
one. The Jeep has them, and the RV has them.
I just maybe being in this business, we talk to too many people that have had the problems, and it's not necessary to have the problems.
Right.
This will resolve it in most cases. Now you can have just that rare situation where there's just a blowout that just happens. But that's not common.
No.
There's two brands. We personally use the TST tire pressure monitoring system here, and this is the system we've used for
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years on the road. It works
full
great.
Time. I mean, all the time. Never had issues with it.
It's a great company, great customer service, and again, we've had the TST in 49 states,
right.
and it's never failed us. Tire Minder's another great system, and the reason that we started carrying the Tire Minder is because they had two models that were a little bit different than the TST. I mean, the general thing is they're all doing the same thing. They're monitoring pressure and temperature, right? So, but Tire Minder has one that can operate off of an app on your phone. And then they also have like an economical version that it's less expensive.
It's not as many bells and whistles.
Yeah.
But it does the job, and it's gonna alarm you. It's just not probably as high-end, feature-rich as the TST one is.
Yeah,
so.
it's like a car. They'll all get you somewhere, and do you like the features and the bells and whistles and all that?
But we've tested both, and we stand behind both.
Absolutely, 100%.
But we've just been TST people. TST has the flow-through sensor and the cap sensor, whereas Tire Minder is cap sensor only, but they all work the same. So we have a lot of videos on how to pick the right sensor, more about the features of them, everything you would ever want to know about comparison of the two, if it's something you're looking at. But I would recommend everyone be monitoring their tires.
So a lot of times these videos that we make are time sensitive in that maybe a particular product's going to be coming out in the future, and so Tami had mentioned flow through and cap with the TST, and the Tire Minder only has the cap sensors, and Tire Minder is coming out with a flow through sensor, and so if somebody watches this a few months down the road, then just know that that
and
is
when those
on
come
the
out,
way.
we'll make up more videos on it after we test it.
So anyway, that kind of covers it on tire pressure monitoring system. So you got to have the electrical protection. You got to have the tire pressure monitoring system, and then the next one is propane safety. If you have propane in your RV, then it is a big concern to make sure that you have some safety measures in place.
Oh yeah.
To protect you from a propane leak. And
well, they put the LP alarms inside it. I mean, there's issues with propane leaks. You need to be alarmed of propane leaks, but there really wasn't anything out there that's like, hey, we'll let you know we're having one. But this one stops it.
Yeah. So
instead of just being alarmed, it's like, nah.
I don't know why. Maybe I just didn't put a whole lot of thought into it. But I always thought there was something in place that would.
You would assume that
if there was a leak, that something would cut that leak off, and as it turns out, there is something called an excess flow valve in your propane line, and if there's a leak, it'll cut off. I forget the exact number, but like 75% of the leak, that excess flow valve will do that. But that's not enough. Like. That other 25% can fill up an RV like that, right? And so in my mind, it's like, no, if there's a leak, I want it cut off 100%. And so Gas Stop is the device, and it's an 100% automatic shut-off device, and it's so simple.
I know.
It's so simple. You basically just.
Why didn't we come up with that?
Yeah. You basically just screw the gas stop onto your tank. And then you take the line that you would normally go straight to the tank, and then you just put it on the other end of the gas stop, and then there's a little primer button. You push it, it pressurizes it, and then if you have a leak, and I've got a video where I actually demonstrate this. And
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
I'll put it above so people can watch it.
Yeah. So I actually demonstrate a leak, and I'm telling you what, it is every single time, in an instant. And what it is there's a ball bearing in here, and it is tuned to cut off the flow of that propane if the flow gets above 75,000 BTUs.
So does that 75,000, take into account using a lot of propane things at the same time?
Yeah, this is a lot of testing obviously went into place to say, hey, for a normal RV, like what is the level that normal flow of propane is normal?
Okay.
Right, and then what's that level to where it's like, nah, if you get to that level, that you got a leak, right? And so that's the level. They could have put it at anywhere, right? So this wasn't just an afterthought. A lot of testing went into this, and yeah, it's 75,000 is the number. I mean, if you get a leak, a cut, or something like that, you're blasting past 75,000, and that's whenever you want to be cut off of in an instant. If you have 2 propane tanks on board, you need 2 of the gas stop devices. And there are 2 different fittings. So if you're in like a big motorhome that's got one of the big built-in tanks, that's called a POL connection point. And if you're in one that looks more like a barbecue grill type thing for like a towable or something like that, that's called an Acme style connection point.
And we have that information on the website, on the page, to help you pick which ones.
Yeah, TechnoRV.com. If you go to gas stop, we've got pictures and stuff that's like that. That's the one you need right there. And then of course you can call us if you've got any questions. But yeah, propane safety is a big deal. Something you don't think about a lot. And this will be like, get this and you won't have to think about it again.
Right. And they just came out with a new adapter for gas stop called Gas Gear.
Good point. So what can happen is well, I haven't taken the measurements on that, but I would say that's what 4 inches or so right there across.
Sure.
And so if you have a casing that goes over your propane tanks,
a lot of travel trailers have that on the front.
Yeah, and that casing is super tight, like to those propane tanks. A lot of times you can rotate the tanks, right? To where this isn't pointing straight towards like the casing, you can rotate it in,
right?
And then you can still put your connection point on. And then there's some cases where maybe you just can't make that work. So what Gas Stop did is they came up with basically a 90-degree turn on that connection point. I kind of like it anyway because a lot of the times, even if you're not using a gas stop, a lot of times that line coming off that propane tank comes in and it hits that casing and comes down, and a lot of times it can start wearing and things. So I kind of like the 90-degree turn anyway, but in some cases you might need it with the gas stop. So
we needed it with the Rockwood.
Absolutely, we needed it. Yeah, the Rockwood that we have was exactly that. I couldn't rotate them to the point to get it, and the gas gear 90-degree fixed the problem just like that. So I think that covers it. It's the 3 items that we just feel like are the absolute items that you have to have if you're going to go out RVing: electrical protection, tire pressure monitoring, propane safety.
Well, the way I see it, and I think I've said this before, to me, these are the 3 products that you need to monitor nonstop. You need to monitor your tires nonstop while driving. You need to monitor your electricity nonstop while you're getting it, and you need to monitor propane. And you can't do that. So this does something that nobody can do. These things need to be monitored 24/7 when they're being used, and there's nothing that can do that. So it's one of those things that only a device like this can ensure that you're safe.
It's an excellent point. Banging on your tires and,
some people check the pedestal right when they get there and everything's fine, but
all that's great, but you're exactly right. It's that continuous coverage that these devices give you.
And that's why they're the top 3.
Yeah, so I hope this has been helpful. We do have a lot of information on our site at TechnoRV.com. We've got information guides. You can go to our articles sections. We're all about giving lots of information out to make sure RVers are educated on this type thing. So we've talked a lot about a lot of great products, and so I wanted to kind of close to say that, at TechnoRV.com, which is the company that we own, because not only are we full-time RVers, we do own TechnoRV, that you can get all of these products at TechnoRV.com. We've got a lot of information on our site, from information guides to articles that we've written, and then of course we've got our YouTube channel with a lot of videos as well, just kind of like this one. So anyway, hop on over to TechnoRV.com and check them out.